Explain what you're doing.
I'm
welder.
gonna be fixing this exhaust and make it not look like shit.
Can't hear you, you little shit.
First I gotta take it off and make it work. I'll tell you, they locked up these bolts nice and tight though.
Okay, Bodo, being a lunatic. I mean, Site Garage. We gotta mention everyone by their YouTube names. I think you could rename your channel. How many subscribers do you have in your channel?
I don't think I have any.
Bullshit. You did that one video about cleaning a gun, and you had like 5,000 views.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
It doesn't matter. I don't know how. My subwoofer review video I did has over 200,000 views. I have no idea where they came from. It's 10 times what every other video has. So someone linked it somewhere.
All right.
Okay, looks good.
I don't want to lose any of this stuff. Pop it off.
Just pull them off. We're done. We're done here. Let's go home.
Put the washers and the nut back on. Leave them right there for now. Never mind. I got it.
You actually won't see me. It's fine.
Could you use any shittier wire on this?
I bought, I think it's 16 gauge. I bought the highest gauge stainless steel wire I could find in my hardware store.
Just buy yourself some stainless steel TIG rod.
Oh
like
yeah,
a 16.
I'm gonna have that in my local hardware store.
You can buy it in like 3-foot sections. Yeah, you buy it online. Or see if you can find like a metal coat hanger. Those are pretty thick and they're bendable and they're very strong.
If the 5 and dime in my town was still open, I could have easily done that. They're just closed.
Don't hit me in the face. Slide that off. Remove the gasket without damaging it. Very important step. Z, put this someplace very safe.
Yep.
Oh, is that warm?
It's wildly warm.
Oh, I'm wearing leather gloves. I didn't know.
Wildly warm. I'm sure you didn't know.
Good practice, so you don't lose any of your hardware. Put them someplace where you're gonna know where they're gonna be.
I usually carry around a, what's it called?
Woo! That was warm.
A giant neodymium magnet. How much my bumper just flaked off?
Probably a lot.
Oh yeah, that's part of my bumper.
Yeah.
Can I grab this?
She's definitely melted. No. This is no.
That's not bad.
Because I need to
top of that.
figure out where I want this to go. I think we had it on the inside hole last time, and it's just a little bit too long for that. Yeah, so it's a little bit too long for that. In fact, everything about that looks like it's pretty wrong. And you know what? It's not too bad. Yeah, this is definitely much different from your factory X-pipe. Your intermediate pipe, your old one went up at an angle. This one comes out perfectly perpendicular and square to the body, so...
Everything's fucked up. Gotcha.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to cut that pipe not straight to fix it? Or just... I mean, you're not gonna go with 3 out.
Oh no, I gotta think a little bit first.
Think live on camera.
So I want this to be right there. The muffler doesn't really matter. I want to avoid hitting this heat shield. Yeah, there's a big angle, there's a big gap here I gotta try to fix. These flex pipes might just make it. How does that look from the back? I know it's hitting.
We don't really have the space to judge this anymore. Don't look at me. Don't look at me. It's. Oh. Did I touch this? Like there is perfect, but there is not perfect. So it's literally.
Hold on. I'm gonna put the bolts back in like this.
Careful it doesn't drop on your head.
It's not.
Famous last words. Zill just sent his position on the GPS. He's next to Green Level Road, which is, holy shit. He's in Boone's Mill. He said, I'm in the boonies. And he's literally in Boone's Mill over 81 in the middle of Virginia.
He's still in Virginia?
Boone's Mill, baby. If any of you were in Boone's Mill, feel free to go
So
look for a giant pickup truck with a trailer and rape the people in it to death.
That flange ain't gonna fit now. Because the clocking of it's all wrong. I'm amazed that this even fit from the beginning.
What? I mean, Chris, they got him on. I mean, Socks Puppet for... Everyone's got to know your name from one little leak in a video. Like, they all know my name is Axelrod.
Just call me C.
No, you're Socks.
No, but
You either,
my channel will be C Welds. If I ever make one.
well, then you're C Welds.
Alright.
C Welds. C Welds.
Honestly, how does that look?
It's centered. It just, this needs to go down.
It's centered, but it's kind of there, right?
Yeah, like that. Look, right there. With my finger wedged up against it is perfect. But as soon as I let go of that, then it's like a massive...
Well, it's doing that because the flanges are moving. So get it into position where you like it and hold it. I wish I had another, you know, I should have 9/16. All right, you got it in position?
Yep.
All right, let go.
Moved up a little bit. I mean, like...
Well, that's because there's a gap on this flange because the flange isn't clocked properly. So I'm gonna have to cut the flange off, or I could just cut the pipe in the middle,
All right, now,
reposition it, and then tack it.
the real question is, can you, like, we've now got 1.25 inches probably to the top of this, and that one's still 3 1/4 inches. So is that other side...
That's because I haven't adjusted this side yet. I just wanted to see if we were capable of getting it in sort of position.
Yeah.
And this means that I really don't have a whole lot of work to do. I could probably just drill out this hole a little bit more and get it to fit, but I don't know how close the tubes are going to line up. And I want the tubes to line up perfectly. Oh, and by the way, this X pipe is not 3 inches. It looks like 2.5. So we could have made the back of this car with 2.5 inch piping.
Bullshit. That whole X pipe's 3 inches.
Bullshit. There's a bag right there on the cooler. Inside you guys see a little veneer. Let me get...
Wait, where?
In that Craftsman tool bag on top of the white cooler, you're gonna see a little slide veneer.
If I knew the words you were saying...
It's a little caliper.
Oh, you mean the one
measuring
that's out of
device.
the bag?
Yes.
Great.
It's in there. It's
Great.
brass.
Is it the brass one? Great.
I missed.
That's great. Great.
I'm telling you, it's smaller. Yeah, it's 2.5. No way in fucking Christ's name is this 3.
I paid for 3. I'll have a fucking heart attack.
I reckon that's about 2 3/4.
Maybe that's OD.
No, the OD is 2 3/4. ID would be 2.5 if that's 16th wall tubing. No, my math is wrong a lot, but it's close enough. Which means that I can probably leave these flanges a little offset, and it's not going to restrict flow because the flange will still hold it. So we might not even need to do that much work, which means that the shop is a bunch of fucking idiots for letting it go like this from the first place. So we're gonna find out once we do the driver's side, also known as the left side.
If it's fucking a paid for 3-inch dual, that's the real question.
You gotta check on Cook's website. You bought this direct from Cook's, right?
Right to Cook's. Cook shipped it right to the factory, to the shop, and I never even saw the box. I don't even think they made a smaller exhaust for this car. That's the thing, they only made a 3-inch.
Hey look, I have a set of headers on my Camaro from a company called LLP that on their Gen 2s had a velocity spike in their collector on their merge, and out of all the quote-unquote test sets that they sent out, I was the last one to get a test set to check fitment and any sort of clearance issues I'm the only one that has a set that doesn't have the velocity spike, the merge spike, and I'm fucking pissed because I still paid like $500 for them instead of the standard like 7 or 8.
I paid fucking 9 for the X pipe.
It's a beautiful X pipe though.
It's great. I'm great. It's not 3. I don't at this point I wouldn't care, but I want them to acknowledge that they set the wrong fucking one. This Zeos is not the Zeos you want to meet.
Super cereal, guys. Man Bear Pig is real.
I will send the angriest fucking email they've ever ignored.
Here's Z. I will take a video demonstration of this.
Hey, you've already got it like lined up.
Here's the pipe.
So I gotta blame
there's the
also for
there's
not
the
putting it
gasket.
back on better.
Yeah, this is definitely smaller. Yeah, look at the difference there. You have about a 1/4 inch wall. Can you see that or no?
Yeah. Yeah, if I can.
Did you think about how much louder this car would be with a full 3-inch? Here, that should be cool by now. Alright, we're gonna do the exact same thing. I'm just gonna slide this out. Whoops.
Less bumper melted on this one.
And slide it back on the inside hole. And let me get a bolt in here. Don't move. Ooh, that nut was warm.
Even Iboto should have seen that. I haven't been under the car. I haven't laid under the car. Actually, I did lay under the car when I dropped the mufflers.
Yeah, but you didn't like put it up on lifts. I mean, on ramps and get under here.
And it really isn't the shop's fault if they got a 2.5-inch exhaust and I was supposed to get a 3.
Well, look, if it wasn't for this car, it wouldn't fit at all. So you can't blame the shop for that.
Yeah, it's not. I can blame the shop for lots of little things, but not that. This is a cook's problem, and I'll have to fucking.
Hey, look, if you can get money back, that's fine.
I'm gonna need pictures. You're gonna have to hold up a caliper.
That's fine. That's why I carry that with me at all times. Oh. All right, get
It's gonna have to go in about 3/4. It's got to go in 1 inch.
All right, hold on.
Can that happen?
I'm still locking up this flange.
I'm just telling you that's to get this to match that. It's got to move in about 1 inch.
Well, we might be able to bend the hanger.
Well, hanger's not my concern. The concern is where you're attaching it now. Not down. It's got to go forward towards the front of the car. 1 inch.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. Now keep in mind, you didn't put the tips on this. You didn't have the time to put the tips on.
They put the tips on.
They put the tips on, but the tips were cut by us, so they were as short as they're going to go.
If I had to pull 1 inch out, it's going to be really tricky. Actually, no, we might have an adjustment. Yes, we do. We could probably, if this will slide on a little bit more, we can make an adjustment on this.
Oh, you're saying this, but I can't see it.
On the back part of your X pipe, these two 90-degree bends, they're held on by a clamp that are adjustable. I could actually clock these up a little bit more, probably, and it'll relieve a little pressure off your flex pipe.
Well, what do you need to unbolt those to see what they do?
Let me get a 15mm long socket.
No, socket.
3/4. I mean 3/8 drive.
3/8 drive.
It'll be towards the open end wrenches.
13?
No, 15.
15? I'm reading.
Perfect.
He can't read. He just listens to shit.
Question: do you want the tips farther out or farther in?
In. They're ugly tips. I won't deny how ugly these are.
They're not ugly.
They're angled too much. And the less you
These
see
aren't even that tight.
From the rear, Hiboto is saying I can't even tell you have tips because they're so thin walled because of the intercooler. They look like it's just like a.
Oh yeah, baby. I'm gonna pull the muffler back off, and I'm gonna see if I can walk this in anymore. Since the clamp came right off, I don't know how much more room we're gonna have to work. I might not be able to push this side in. I might be able to pull the other side out. So we might have to meet in the middle somewhere, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, fine. I mean, get it better than sticking out 4 inches on the side. Like it looks like a.
Do you have a mark? Try to think where I have a marker.
Oh god.
probably in the front of my car, which you're not going to get to. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Oh God.
Oh jeez.
M Cook just asked me if tomorrow morning she wanted me to take her to Home Depot, to Restaurant Depot, for cookie and pizza supplies. And I'm like, that's all depends on this. The Z-Mobile, ZPPV needs to have an exhaust that is functional. And you're not doing it tomorrow, or you got things to do other than bike riding?
I want to go for a bike ride, but if I can finish your exhaust, I will.
See bikes? I'm desperately interested in getting the goddamn cutouts on. Desperately interested. Just so open it up at random times of the day. In fact, I'm gonna pull this box out of the trunk and try not to drop anything.
Oh, sorry, camera. Sorry, viewers. I actually just hit the camera against the exhaust.
Oh, Auto Fanatic gave me this rim wax, by the way. I think it's for rim jobs.
Rim wax?
He said, yeah, it's free, and I don't use it.
Alright. I could always take this off and cut this tube a little shorter. I could probably walk it in another ½ inch or so. It'll be a tight squeeze, but it might be doable.
Like a baby. What? That was probably messed up. Edit that out. I don't want to actually edit that out. That was messed up.
See, I could really adjust this a lot more than I thought I could.
I have a question for you.
How does that look?
C-Weld?
It's gonna look like shit, I know, but I'm asking you how it looks.
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
It's not like 5 times longer.
Let's come back down.
How did you put your wiring from your cutout? Your cutout was right under the car, right?
Yeah. I ran it underneath the car.
Well, it's going to have to run underneath the car. I don't know any way to do it.
I think I put it through my transmission tunnel, out by my shifter boot.
Yeah, yeah.
Which you don't have one.
No.
And I ran it up that way.
I mean.
And I just zip tied it along. I think it was one of the brake lines.
I mean, you don't have to have like wire crimps here, do you? And heat shrink?
I have all my soldering stuff at home.
Nah, it doesn't help us. Because here's the wire harness for these cutouts.
Hold on.
It's terminated in a beautiful switch. It goes up and down.
Get this back into position, please.
Let go. I mean, there's good, but it's got to go forward a full inch to make me not kill myself.
Shut up.
I'll do whatever I feel like I need to do. Be pretty.
All right, let go.
Yeah, that's dead center. If we're comparing it to the other one,
I don't know why they just didn't do it like this from the shop.
The shop had such a rush on this goddamn car.
That's no excuse. Come on.
Yeah, they had paying customer. You know?
Yeah, you were paying customer too.
Yeah, massive paying customer. Big massive.
All right, I gotta definitely.
A really nice switch.
I might just tack weld the washer on the front of that so it doesn't pop out. So it still needs to go in?
Yeah. Let me see. The Borla B is less than 1/4 inch from the bumper. The Borla A is 1 1/4 inches from the bumper. It's 1 inch. It's got to go full.
Wow.
22 millimeters.
I have to cut that. I don't have to cut this thing. And even then, it's not going to be enough because yeah, I could always cut the tubing on the back of the muffler and redo that, but
if you
it's already it's squared and centered, right?
Oh yeah, it's perfectly centered. It's just too long by 1 inch.
I can get a blade in here.
At least, hold on. I can tell you exactly how much it's too long by. You have this little tool. It's a vertical to there. All right, so that measures. What the fuck scale is this in? 72 off the back. And this measures 45. So that's 10, 20, 25, 27 millimeters forward it's got to go.
So just an inch.
Even.
Just over 1 inch.
Just over 1 inch. Which is what I said, because I called it.
Well, I'm going to get this one as far back as I can. If I have to pull the other one farther out, then that's what's gonna have to happen.
Well, look, if we're gonna do any modifications to get the cutouts in, and you have to cut anything,
I'm not gonna. I don't have to. That's the thing. This is already done.
get it closer than that. We gotta pull the right side out a half inch. We can bend, even if we have to bend something at this point.
No, I'm just gonna have to trim something, which I'm gonna do that right now. This should slide right off.
It's rusting.
It's from the weld, from probably getting too hot.
Are you gonna actually trim from the X-pipe?
Yeah.
Good. Pull a piece of the X-pipe out. We'll take a good picture of it with the goddamn slide rule. I can send it to Cuff and tell him to suck it and give me back $250.
It's coming. It's just taking a while.
This is the good part. Start talking about your life experiences. And the last time this happened, you got that rust in your eye and you had to be rushed to emergency room in Peru. No,
that never happened, but it just annoys the fucking shit out of me. And there's not much you can really do to get a screwdriver in there to pry it out. You can try bending it, but I don't want to damage anything else. I should have moved my Camaro to get my my jack stands out, because I could put a jack stand up under this and pull down.
Can I get to them or no way?
Nope. You gotta pull the car out of the garage.
Really?
Yeah. Wow, this motherfucker just got tight.
Can't be that much fucking...
Oh, trust me, there is.
Otherwise, I point out to the camera that I don't believe him, and I'm gonna see what I can do. You got a light switch?
Nope. I gotta plug in the extension cord across the yard.
Perfect. I think you and I both need houses.
I don't want to spend the money on a house. A big garage that could be mine, though. Does sound pretty appealing. All right, this thing is getting really tight. I gotta try pushing it back on.
It's getting hard to come off?
Yeah, it's because when I put the clamp on it, I could see that's marking on one side.
Marking or marking?
All right, I think it's coming. Do have a hammer. Don't want to fuck this up. Ah, fuck it. With your fingers. Ow. Ta-da. No damage to the tube. Let's see what this looks like. So you can see, I don't know if you can see, but I can see where this tube originally stopped. And that was, as you can see, this was fully seated into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this back an inch, which will still allow that to seat there. I'll try to fit it, and if that's too long, I'll cut the front of this. Clean up the inside, I'll still have a little bit of this relief. So this way the clamp will be able to tighten down on it, and if not, I'll go in here with my Sawzall and just extend these a little bit. Clean up the inside with a file or a deburring stone if I have one, and voila, there will be our inch. So I'm probably gonna have to go a fair amount. Aha!
Ha!
Proof this is 2.5 inch.
Does it say it on the pipe?
It literally says it on a sticker on the pipe.
Look at this fuck cunt bag. Let me get that on camera. It says Caprice too. 2.5 inch secondary. Fuck.
Alright, camera, I'm gonna have to shut you off because I have to get suited up for this. I'm gonna come here with my Sawzall, try to cut a nice straight line straight across, and come in here and clean this up best I can. And then I'm definitely gonna have to cut off a little bit of that front pipe to get it to go on, because it's going to stop probably right around there. So that's only about half what we need. So I'm gonna have to cut at least a 1/2 inch off the front of that to make this work, and then that's gonna save a lot of headaches trying to fuck around with the hangers and the tip or even my welds over here, because these are all fully assembled with the exception of the cutout cover. Cutout's gonna go here, probably in the middle, and then I'm gonna have to take one of the other J-bends that we have, cut it at a sharp angle, and it's going to come out at a very, very steep and sharp turn straight into the cutout, into the Y, boom, out the back. And it's gonna be really, really nice and clean when it's done, but it's gonna take a long time to get there. All right, be right back. All right, time to cut. Let me get that, please.
Hold on, you just said get a picture of the fucking thing.
All right, I want to start setting up down here. Alright, keep the tools sort of organized and out of the way. I had to get a long sleeve shirt on, earplugs, and better eye protection, which I'm not really wearing, but that's my own qualm. Always wear eye protection, because if you get hurt or you get a piece of steel in your eye,
the pipe.
You're gonna have a very bad day.
Here is the little...
No,
Too bad thing. What are you looking for?
No, I just need this. You know what? Yeah, I'll take this as well. Fuck it. Alright, so I got cut off about 1 inch. So, to the inside, right there, it's about 1 inch. No. That's 1 inch. Alright. So, to that line, I'm going to go a little bit past it, because I'd rather leave a little bit more room for adjustment than not enough room for adjustment and have to take a second cut. So, let's see if you could see this. So if I cut it right there, that's going to allow this tube to go about that far in. But you're going to, it's very difficult to see, but the front of this might just start to hit this. So what I'll do is I'll probably just notch this section out as opposed to cutting off the entire front. So I'll get to that after I cut this off. So I already started, I already got a mark, which is going to be just behind that line, which is just about 1 inch. And I'm just going to eyeball it out as best I can and see how it comes out. If it comes out a little cockeyed, I'm not going to be overly concerned, because I could always just clean it up with the grinder or with the Sawzall again afterwards. Things to take note when using Sawzall: figure out where the tip of the blade is going to end up. So if I was cutting farther back here, be careful not to have the tip of the blade bounce off against the end of the CV joint on the axle, or against like the housing of the differential. Because if you do that, not only might you damage the piece that you hit, but you're also going to damage the blade. It could kick back out, it could hurt your wrist, it could hurt your tool, or it could bend your blade in the piece and get stuck. So fortunately for me, I am at a good location where I can manipulate the tool and not have the blade get in the way of anything critical or serious. When I come close to the tip or close to the end of the tube for cutting it, the blade might start to touch the subframe, but when I get there, I'll probably pull it out just enough to have the tip still clear the outside of the tube, because if the tip of the saw blade hits the inside of the tube while you're cutting, again, it's going to bounce the tool back and you could damage something. So let me try to do this without getting hurt or messing anything up. So I'm going to give a quick peek. It's not perfectly straight, but I am cutting a little bit extra material off, so I'm not overly worried about that. Now you can see I'm able to manipulate the tool a little bit farther down, and that's going to clear the blade off the subframe. So now the battery is getting wedged against the floor. So now I'm going to have to try to do this by pulling the blade away, or pulling the Sawzall's, what the hell is it called? The face of the ram far away from the tube, which could cause serious issues as far as it juddering back and forth on me and grabbing. So be very careful with this. And there you go. You can see it's not perfectly straight. Stainless is a pain in the ass, and it's also a much bigger pain in the ass when you can't see exactly what you're doing. I could have put a piece of tape around it, but it's not overly critical for this job. If this was a piece that I had to weld onto another tube, I would have made sure this would have been as straight as possible. If it was sloped the other way, whereas the bottom was farther out than the top, that means that I would have to have cut more material off of it to get that tube to clear. So now I have to come back in here with a file and clean this up a little bit, and that tube can slide on, and I could notch the front. Before I even attempt to do that, I'm going to notch the front of the tube to clear this radius, clean this up, slide it back on. The clamp's already in position. So I'll be able to make that work. Thinking about it, I could have probably adjusted one of those clamps and slid it farther forward, but there's no going back now. So onwards and outwards. Now remember which way is the top on this. This shouldn't slide on very easily. Just the burr. But now we'll be able to go into about that far. So I have to cut, slice off from here to about there. Try doing this by hand. See, stainless is not easy to cut. These blades are holding up pretty good.
Don't look up. Keep looking down. That's perfect.
Now that should clear it perfectly. Now I just got to clean the inside of this tube. I'm not overly worried about this not having enough clamping force, but if you want to, you could do that, and you got, boom, a bigger relief to accept more clamping force from the clamp onto the inner tube and make that work. Scrap those in the garbage. And now I can take out my file. This will be for the outside. I could probably get the inside of the tube with this as well, but I do believe I have a round file in here somewhere. Pardon this mess. I was not expecting to make a video today. In fact, I wasn't expecting to make a video at all. But
you're God here.
Here I am.
He'll get into it, people. He'll get into it. He'll figure out that he doesn't have to apologize for shit.
Well, you know what? I don't have a whole lot of time to work on this piece of shit.
Hey, you leave this thing alone. It saved your life, sort of.
It's my 94 Z28 that I put into a ditch at a very high rate of speed, and I'm alive because of it. A quick overview. It was fully built from, well, pretty much the front to the back. It was set up for road racing, despite the fact it was T-tops. The subframe connectors definitely helped with that. Helped keep the body from twisting. Had 191,000 miles on it. The LT4 had a fully built bottom end. LT4 hot cam, hand ported heads and intake. Never had it dynoed, but it was definitely at least 350 to the tire. Car had plenty of bowls. I custom made a Ford 8.8 with a Torsen diff, 32 spline axles, 410 gears, and with the Borg Warner T56, this thing used a whole ass. AC delete, alternator relocation kit that I custom made. It was a hell of a thing, but she no longer is roadworthy and hasn't been since December of 2015. So it's been quite a while. But as you can see, I'm in the process of gutting it because I have another Camaro, another 94, but it's an RS. It's a V6 automatic hardtop with, I believe, in the area of 90,000 miles original on it. So the body's pretty clean. There's a couple little rust spots in the floorboards. And that's pretty much it. Car's, for what it is, for what I paid for it, it's very good. And this thing is going to get fully stripped, and everything's going to get put into that car, and it's going to be a full-on track car. All right, so let's start cleaning up these tubes and get them fitted. Yes, you can use a flat file in a round hole. It's not a very critical component, and it's just enough to take off a slight edge. I'm not overly worried about any sharp edges on this because for right now I'm wearing gloves, and as far as I can tell, I don't think anyone else is going to go into this car except for me to do any sort of work on it, or at least that's what I hope, and so my brother hopes as well. So this should be enough to do this, and hopefully forever. Keep that on the cardboard. I don't want to scratch up too much. The inside of this tube doesn't matter as much, but I'm still going to clean up the burr because I don't like leaving a burr. Yeah, pretty good. All right, inside's pretty good. And you know what, there's not a big burr on the outside either. Alrighty. Now I am wearing gloves, but I don't feel anything grabbing on them. It's nice and smooth. Now if you'll remember, when I pulled this off, it was rubbing on the inside. I don't know if you could have seen that, but I did. And that's one of the pieces that I cut off. But to make sure it's not going to grab, I'm going to just hit the edge of this all the way around. Alright, let's see if it's going to slide on. Come on. It's going to be a little awkward with this relief in it. And in fact, you know what? After I cut this, it might have squeezed down a little bit. But there's a simple solution for that involves an adjustable wrench. I'm pretty sure I still have it in here. If not, yes, I do. Come to the edge. Just go pry it out ever so slightly. You don't want to do this too much because then the clamp might give you a little hard time trying to get on it. It might not look like I'm doing much, but trust me, I am. I'm going to bring that down with me just in case I need it again down here. I don't want to keep on climbing out from under this car if I can avoid it. Let's see if that helped. Might just have to go a little bit more. There we go. That's a little better. And we are on. We are in. As you can see, we're just about at that inch. And because I opened this up and I cleaned it up, I cleaned up all the burrs, you can see how nice and easily this moves. So if I have to adjust it, I don't have to make any crazy moves. But the clamp won't clear that steep of an angle. And I'll back this off just a little bit. I might have to open up the clamp a little bit more. That was a 15mm long socket on a 3/8 driver. And this is a locking nut, so you're not going to be able to turn that by hand. Or at least not too easily. Give it a little love tap. There we go. And we are, I'm an idiot. I'm a fucking idiot. I loosened up the wrong one. Alright, well, at least we know this one wasn't that tight either, but you don't have to lock these up crazy. My bad. We all make mistakes, as long as it doesn't cost anyone their life or some serious injury, it's okay. Even if you make a mistake that costs you money, guess what? Money comes and goes. Just as long as you learn from your mistakes, it can never really be a mistake because it's still a life lesson that you learn something from. If you could take something away from it, then you should never be upset or regret it. So this clamp will go there like that, if that's in the good position. I'll lock the shit out of that, so this way it gets a really good bite on it. And hopefully it won't dig in, the inside of this clamp won't dig into that. If I have to back it out a little bit, it's still going to put plenty of pressure on there because I did open that relief a little bit more, and these reliefs go back a little bit more, and these clamps can put a fair amount of torque on there, no problem. But now the question is, do I leave the clamp like this, or do I turn it around to make it even with that? Right, well, I'm a little OCD, and I like things being symmetrical if I can get them symmetrical. So on goes the clamp backwards. And back goes on the tube. And now, when I lock this up, the strap won't be interfering with that bend like it was before. Because if I had it like this, the strap might bottom out against this elbow before tightening up on this tube, which would prevent it from getting a good seal. But with it like this, now the gap, the opening on the clamp, is going to allow it to sit a little bit closer to the edge of this tube that we just cut, and hopefully get a better seal on there. So now, with this in full back position, I'm going to put the exhaust mount back on. This should just slide on. Z, yeah. I'm going to need that exhaust pipe, the muffler. So now that that's all set up, I'm going to just put a little tension on this just so it doesn't rattle as much, but I can still move this. Beautiful. I want to get one of these bolts, both of my wrenches, move everything else out of my way. take this.
I don't believe I finished those seals.
Now, if you're looking at this and thinking that this mount might come off, you're probably right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a washer. I have some stainless steel washers here, actually. Put one over this, give it a couple of tacks in the middle, and this way, if I ever have to take it off, I just grind off a couple of tacks, and it should be able to come off. All right, so this mount, which should be strong enough because there's not a lot of weight on these, should go on the inside. There we go. And then this is get angled up, but because it's loose, it's gonna turn nice and easily. All right, tell me how it looks from the back. Get it in position.
Actually, I gotta move it over.
Well, it's gonna move over once I start to lock this up.
No.
So just give me a sec.
Do it to a point where I feel like, all right, and then.
All right, get it in position. Like that.
A little bit more.
Hold on.
We're way better.
How's that look?
Well, that's centered. Right there is centered. If it can go forward a smidgen, like, well, 3/8 of an inch, honestly.
3/8 of an inch is not a smidgen. A smidgen's a 16th.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it from like a gapping perspective. We're a little bit closer on this side. Hold on. I mean, that's infinitely better than what it was. You could probably do it like a 1/4 inch to match up the word. If I'm looking at the word Borla on both, and the B and the A are aligned, a 1/4 inch is where it's got to go. So
What I'm going to do,
and it'll be fine.
I might be able to just get a little bit more out of this. Not a whole lot, but just a little.
You can get an 1/8 inch out of it, and we can bring the other side out an 1/8
I'm going
inch,
to just tap against the mount here, and hopefully it'll lock up this pipe a little bit more. It's already in a perfect position. I can probably get the other bolt in here. Which, if I can get the other bolt in there, I know that it's going to be clocked properly. We still have clearance on the back, which is something that I should have noted earlier. But, c'est la vie. Alright, so the other bolt can go in here, which means I'm going to lock this up completely. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, but where's the gasket? The gasket's going to add a little bit of, it's going to make it stick out a little bit farther.
No one's saying that online.
It's going to be about a 1/16 of an inch, and
no one's saying that.
You're not going to really notice that. I mean, yes, you are right. It is going to move it out, but nowhere near enough to the point where it's going to make or break this entire setup. I'm going to snug up the top. Beautiful. Snug up the bottom. All right, how does that look?
Checking. Using my special eyes.
Definitely going to have to weld a washer on this.
Oh yeah, it's definitely out too far now. Did I get further back? Which way did you move it?
All I did was put the bolt on the top part of the flange.
Well, you can.
Well, it's perfectly centered.
Yeah, it's just, you know, here, look, well, don't look, but this A, see the Borla A? It needs to be like fucking in line with the thing.
What happened to the
I don't know. That's all new to me, bro.
I'm gonna have to pull that one out.
I mean,
actually, wait, which one of these is slightly twisted?
I don't know the answer to that query. The query does not comply.
This one actually needs to get...
Look up a little more with your head.
This one looks like it might need, as far as the muffler and where the cutout comes out.
Actually, look up, or look up with your eyes at the GoPro. Can you see the lens?
Yeah.
Tell me when you can't see the lens.
That's about it.
That's probably perfect. That's how I judge it. Trade secrets, ladies and gentlemen. Trade secrets.
All right, what I'm going to do is I have bolt bolts in your driver's side. I'm gonna put both bolts in your passenger side, and then I'm gonna loosen up both clamps, and we're gonna get it articulated where it's gonna be settled.
I mean, you took off an inch of the actual pipe, and it's still not forward. Like almost, it's forward, but not even near an inch.
Honestly, I agree. But what we could do at that point...
Is it the hanger holding it back?
No, the hanger's perfect.
Because it can't fall out of the hanger, that's the thing. They were too far back and they were falling out of the hanger. They got to be pushed forward of the car to stay in, correct?
Yeah.
So...
If anything, you're... No, they both look perfect. I'm more worried about your hanger on your H-pipe, but I'm gonna have to just tack weld the washer on there.
Really? It's that close? Oh, because you moved something?
Yeah, because I cut that much pipe off.
Oh.
So I'm gonna loosen this one up. And now I'm going to articulate it to get both bolts in this without having to put too much tension on this flex pipe for the flanges to mate up. It should be really close.
When there's nothing but electric guard, what are they doing?
Bottom bolt's still tight. Forcing me to work against myself. All right.
Forget the cameras there. Talk to me like I'm an idiot. And they will make sense of it.
No, I just want to see what it's going to do when the both flanges are face to face and these bolts are locked up. What's going to happen to everything? How does that look?
On this side?
Yeah.
Well, it's more even. It's a little lower, which is good. Just the further away from the bumper.
Let me pull it. Let me get up. So we got about a finger gap there. Just about a finger gap there. So the height's pretty good. I can probably pull this down a little bit more, just to bend out the hanger.
They'll probably bend the hanger before you bend the thing.
Gap is really close, I'd have to say. So the gap I'm going to leave, at least to the bumper. But we could always just melt the bumper when, you know, all this stuff fails anyway.
It's melting already. It's already stuck to the top.
Now about the problem about that not sticking out enough. I can solve this one of two ways. This one is in where he wants it to be. You might be in frame over there. Yeah, it's more like a half inch. It has to go back again. So if this one's perfect, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to lock up that clamp again. Maybe tap it out just a little bit. But then what I'm going to have to do with this side is, because I don't know if you could see, but this is pretty flat. But this has it's slightly clocked. Clocked up just a little bit. Not a lot, but just enough. Just enough for me to know. And I hate that. I really, really do. In fact, no, this side's clocked down. This side's perfect. Okay, good. Steve, Zeos.
Zeev.
This is the side that we have, it's actually angled down. So,
was it this side that was fucked up? Well, this side now got straight.
No, that side's good. This side's fucked up. Well, maybe it was vice versa, but now...
It was reversed, but now we've changed
the
whole thing.
Everything old is now new again, yes. So, this side's perfect. I'm gonna lock this up for good.
Yeah, the passenger side is fucking on point.
Passenger side is where the money's at. Lock this up. Good. For this side, I can actually pull this back a little bit, because now what do I have to do? to get this to go up is I'm gonna have to come back here, cut this off, reposition it, and then weld it up. But while I cut this off, I'm also gonna cut out that gap that we need to solve this. So we went a little ass backwards here, but whenever you're doing something custom, you're bound to run into an issue like this. Fortunately, I didn't remove enough from this tube to make this be useless if we decide to pull this out another 1/2 inch. This should still function just like it was intended to from factory. So I'm not worried about that. Did I waste a little bit of time? Yes, but ultimately it happens.
Wait, you tell me cutting that wasn't needed?
Probably not, because I'm gonna have to cut the back of this muffler now so we could rotate this and then weld it back into position. So I could just remove, you know, a 1/2 inch or so from the back of the muffler to make it work.
It anyway.
What?
You never got close enough anyway, so yeah, it's fine.
All right. So what am I gonna do? I'm going to probably pull this out about 1/4 of an inch, which would probably eliminate the need for me having to weld a washer on this. As far as its positioning, it's good. The flange is made up, and it's pretty even from left to right. Very happy with that. So I'm just going to pull back on this again. That was at least 1/4 of an inch.
I left sushi some Tic Tacs, the rainbow fruit Tic Tacs. Yeah, the rainbow Tic Tacs.
Uh-huh.
They're gone. We just took a picture of the empty Tic Tacs.
She ate them or he?
How would my cat Chewbacca eat Tic Tacs? Sorry.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure she'd be in the hospital at that point. No, sushi ate.
All right, so the tube still clearly goes past this relief. So I'm gonna leave it like this. We're out enough here, but we're still back at least a 1/2 inch from the other side from where we started. So that's gonna help us get a little bit extra clearance on the back so I don't have to remove as much tubing. So now lock this up. I like these clamps being as flush to the tube as possible, but because I did this a little bit of relief, I'm going to leave it about an 1/8 inch farther back. This is just what I like to do. If you have experience with it and you know it works a certain way for you, by all means do it. And I'm going to give these a good amount of torque just so that they never loosen up. Beautiful. Everything's nice and rigid, nice and solid. Just the way I like it. Just like my BMs. Beautiful.
See that? Well, you're getting there. Don't be a Jay. Don't be a Jay Cooks. Jay never does anything but talk about cooking, and he needs to stop. You don't run a cooking channel on YouTube like that.
No, I was just talking about my bowel movements.
I know.
What, is that not good?
No, it's perfectly fine.
Oh.
But you hadn't did that for like 40 minutes of video. So now when it's actually starting to get real. You gotta whip out stories about grandpa and meatballs. It never fucking happened.
It fucking happened.
It never fucking happened.
My grandpa made meatballs. They're very good.
I believe him eating goldfish before I believe him fucking making meatballs.
So now we're back to that original inch. That side's fine. This side's way farther out. I hate this. I don't know who the fuck did this. You gotta be careful with what shop you bring your car to. This shop came highly recommended that my brother Z took his car to, and this, that, and the next thing, and a couple things they did and said just didn't tickle my pickle. Didn't sit well with me. All right, so the back, we're good with this. We're good with this. Oh, what the fuck? That's interesting. This has actually been bending. Where's my adjustable? This should be flat against this back bracket, and this strengthening rib should probably be somewhere around here, straight on with it. There's nothing straight about this. Pull this off. This is not right. I hate to tell you, but your hanger for the back of your intermediate pipe is bending a lot.
Your hanger's bending, Betty. I imagine that sounds so supposed to be lighter, shouldn't it? I wish it was only 2.5.
I mean, it's straight, but I mean, look at that. That doesn't look or feel very strong.
Well, the ones in the back don't look or feel very strong. They're like a 1/2 inch ribbon of steel with a rubber grommet in the middle of it. A 1/2 inch square ribbon of steel that bends in the middle.
I really don't care for that, but we'll keep an eye on that. If it ever breaks.
Is it low enough that I could ever damage it while I hitting the exhaust up into it?
No, but I just really don't like how flimsy it is. The entire piece is flimsy as shit. If it ever breaks, I'll make a new one and reinforce it so it never happens again. Alright, so back to the topic at hand. We have to remove about 1 inch from back here, and this has to get tilted upwards. This has to go up. And what that'll do is hopefully square up this tip a little better. And if it doesn't, then I gotta cut the tip off and fix that too. Okay, I'm gonna unbolt it, cut the back. I'm gonna cut out about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. Get back under here, bolt this up, get this in the perfect position, and put a couple of tacks on it. And then I can then step back, take a look at what we've got, and go from there. Yes, you'll notice a lot of repetition in this, and that's because whenever you're doing something custom, you always gotta take things on and off and on and off, because if you don't, if you think that you could do it all in one fell swoop, you've never fucking done it before. Always expect everything to go wrong, and this way, when it goes wrong, you're not going to be so upset about it because you've already anticipated it from before you even started. Everything is going to get fucked up. Everything is going to break. Everything is going to fail. Just know it. Know it to happen and you'll be fine. All right, so let's get started on removing 3/4 inch from this back piece. Very high-end table we got going on here. Now this black stuff is actually the bumper. Yes, exhaust can heat up these pipes very hot, even 20 or so feet from the back of the engine. So the main reason why I'm doing all this work is because we're going racing next weekend at Englishtown, and we don't want this to happen. We want this car to not have any sort of clearance issues for at least next weekend. Ideally, we're going to have a cutout get put into this section, but we can't put in the cutout until all of this is perfect. So I'm going to cut off the back tube, shorten it. We're going to turn this slightly and hopefully get it to look and line up perfectly. As far as the clearance issues, we could actually bend this a little bit farther back and tilt this a little bit farther forward to get it to move in and still sit in the mount just right. So, time to mark this up. For that, I'm going to need a marker. Again, this place is a shit show. I don't know where half my shit is, because I'm trying to juggle one too many things at once, and that's just an unfortunate circumstance of being in this area and doing this. Oh, found a set of earplugs.
Cool.
I think I have a marker on the bench. Don't try this at home. Aha! Big old fat Sharpie.
Put it back when you're done.
Shut up.
How you doing, man?
That's my friend Ben. Ben is great, is a gracious and courteous host. I don't know if he wants to be on camera to have all of YouTube look at his pretty face.
Why? What happened? Oh.
But he is the
Why are you doing that?
hostess of this event, because I'm teaching people how to do stuff.
How nice of you.
The future of the world is education. No matter what anyone else might think or say, the most important thing is knowing.
Education.
Whether you pay for it or get it for free, that's up to you. So we're going to take off about 3/4 of an inch.
Right now it's got it to a line.
So if I cut the back of this
we sized up
here
we did it on the original X pipe.
and try to keep it pretty square to the outside of this canister,
The new X pipe flex a bit.
I'd have to cut it about
3 inches.
here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so everything
Now
got-
note, when I use my marker,
We've just been able to change alignment.
it's a pretty fat line. That line's roughly 1/8 of an inch thick. So if you cut on if you cut it down the middle or on either side of it, you might get a larger size or a smaller size. So whenever I draw a mark with a marker, I will then draw a line perpendicular to the section where I had originally marked it to. So what that means is that if I was to cut on the outside of this line perfectly straight down the middle on both of those, you're gonna have about 3/4 of an inch. Now if I cut on the inside of those or on the outside of those, it could be more or less. I don't want to take off too much material, because then I have to worry about the intermediate pipe pulling out too far and having a gap. If we have a gap there, we're gonna have an exhaust leak. Exhaust leaks are not only stupid, they make the car sound like shit, but then they're also hazardous to your health with having carbon monoxide flowing up inside the car. So I'm going to take my first cut of cutting off the back. Now why the back instead of the front? Well, the back could be a little bit easier for me to get my Sawzall in here and use this as a stop to keep it square. But not only that, I'll be able to hold the muffler and keep it locked into, coincidentally, the drip rail on my Camaro. So this way I can hold the body of this instead of trying to hold this little rinky-dinky tube to cut it. So I'm going to cut it. It'll be nice and it'll be a little bit more rigid than trying to hold this and cut it crooked. And then I'm going to cut the inside. So I'm going to cut the outside first and the inside. I'm going to put the Sawzall blade directly through the middle of this red line, and that should give us, as near as makes no difference, a perfect 3/4 inch cut. So go double check my sizes once more. We're really close. Again, if it's off a 1/16 of an inch in or out, it's not going to make much of a difference.
I don't show myself on camera,
So the outside of this housing is pretty square, pretty round. So I'm going to keep the guard right on top of it. Now this blade is just long enough, but I got longer blades. Always go with as long of a blade as you can, so this way you don't have to worry about the blade bouncing back at you from the inside of the tube. So I got some 6-inch blades and I got some 8-inch blades. These are Ivy Classic Bimetal 8% Cobalt Advantage. It's a good play on words. Very good blades. I'm sure there's going to be a link in the description. This is the second or third time I'm using these blades, and I have pretty good luck with them. They're a little pricey, but most things that work are a little bit pricey. So I'm going to keep it as straight as I can. I'm going to keep the guide against the tube, but now you see here's a problem. the guide will hit against the back of this radius. And what that'll do is, it'll start to push, and the blade will start to bend, and you're going to get a crooked cut. So, I'm going to have to position this in a better way, or just go to the other side of the car. No, I'll be good. Move all my stuff around. These tires are off of my Civic. Gotta move my helmet. Yes, this is not a professional shop I'm working out of, but neither is the shop that I work out of 8 to 5 every day. So now, when I go to cut this, half the guide is going to be on the outside of the muffler. The other half is going to be hanging out in space. Now, if I hit any part of my Camaro, I really don't care because it's getting thrown away anyway. So this is a good place for me to work. Now, to get this thing started, you're going to have to be a little patient, because sometimes these blades have a tendency to walk. Now I'm applying medium pressure to it, because I don't want to put too much pressure and have the blade dig into the stainless, or in the tube in this matter, and jam up. Plus, you're going to be putting a lot of strain on the mechanism of the tool. You want the tool to do the cutting, not you. So you want to just let the tool do its job. If you put too little pressure on it, it's going to bounce around and not do much cutting. But if you put too much pressure on it, you could damage something or hurt yourself. So I'm just going to let it cut and put ever so slight pressure on it, so I can make sure that I'm making progress with it. Because if you don't make progress with it, if you don't let the blade cut, you're actually going to be dulling out the blade, because it's going to be rubbing. If you rub two things together, what happens? Especially metal to metal, they get hot. When things get hot, things fail. The way that these blades work is that they stay cool. If you get these blades too hot, they start to deteriorate. Tool steel versus cobalt, these being cobalt, tool steel at a certain temperature will start to soften up. Cobalt has a higher temperature before it starts. We'll have to reach a higher temperature before it starts to soften up. So you could use these blades harder than regular tool steel. Same thing with drill bits. Good to know. If you look at that, that's a pretty straight cut. A lot better than the one that I made under the car. Why? I'm standing on top of it and I could really pay closer attention to it. This came out much better than the one down there, but as good as I was expecting. So now once I cut that line over there, you're going to see it's still going to have a nice sweeping radius to it. It's not going to have a very sharp edge. If this cut was like this exhaust is going to have a really hard time getting from this transition through this transition into this transition. You're going to have a restriction. A restriction of flow is a bad thing. However, because we're going from a 2.5 inch to a 3 inch, that allows me a little more wiggle room to put a very tight radius on it and not have it restrict flow. Because a 2.5 to a 3 inch tube, I don't know the exact difference in volume from one to the other, but I know it's going to be a significant amount. Enough for this engine, a 6-liter, to lose a lot of power? No, because a dual 2.5 will be more than enough to support 500, probably even 600 horsepower. Hell, even a single 3 inch like what's on this car is enough to support 400 to 450 horsepower, which is, for a street car, is, in my opinion, the perfect amount. Any more than that, you're gonna have traction. Any more than that, if you're running a rear-wheel drive or a front-wheel drive car, you might have traction issues. Any less than that, it might not be enough to lug around the weight of the car. All right, cut 2 is going to be a little bit more involved. Reason for that is the guide will hit the outside of the muffler before I can reach my mark. So there's my mark. It's going to be a really close call. This is going to require a little bit more attention and a little bit more time, because I'm going to be cutting through 2 pieces of tubing, the outside and the inside. The old one that I cut off of the bend, the J bend. So this is going to take a little bit more time, and it's going to require me to be a little bit more patient. As you can see, this blade's already suffering a little bit from the front because stainless can be a bitch. So nice and easy, lined up best I can. If I cut a little bit more, I'm not going to cry about it. And we just got through. You can see the blade through the inside tubing. Whenever you're cutting a tube, the hardest parts for you to go through will be the top and the bottom, because you're going to have the longest run of material from one to the other. You're cutting the largest cross section. When you're cutting anywhere from, you know, eighth way down to mostly through the bottom, you're cutting two very small narrow sections. That will allow you to cut through a lot faster because technically you have less surface area to have to remove. But with a small cut like that, these teeth on these blades are going to have a very hard time trying to jam their way through it. When you're cutting through a longer piece of material, the blade's moving a lot smoother than when you're cutting a very short cut like in the center of this tubing. So all this damage happened cutting through the thinnest part. As you can see, this just so happens to correspond where the damage is, which is why it took a little while to get through. But before, where the blade was cutting through the thickest points, those teeth are still in pretty good shape. Now, did you notice how much smoother it got towards the bottom? Because I was cutting a longer piece of material and the blade didn't have to jump as much. And I don't know if you could see, but that's a really nice straight cut. What he needs. So, prepare yourself, set yourself up right, and you can do pretty good work without needing any fancy tools. That was going to be my next question of how hard was that piece going to be to remove? As you can see, not very. Now, am I going to worry about deburring this piece? No. Not so much. Why? Because the J bend that I had just removed, which I have to remember where I placed.
He never shuts up, internet. Actually, we gotta do the line.
Should get really close to slipping inside.
We gotta get onto there, and I gotta it's crooked, it's straight.
All right, fine. I'll clean it up. I'm OCD. Where the hell did I put my file? It's under here.
We built those so that those caps are just there temporarily. They can get taken off and hopefully get there.
I'm going upstairs.
You going?
Yeah.
I'll hit you up before I leave.
I want to hear this work before you guys leave.
Well, why don't you start it up? Because we have to disconnect the battery soon anyway. I'll block your face out. I won't. I won't really because I don't
Actually, is one exhaust on and one not on?
Yeah, that's not gonna matter. You have an X pipe. At least just to idle it.
pulled off. We were up at Lime Rock Park. Yeah. And it's very illegal to go out. Like, that's just idle. And it's not a ticket.
All right, Z, disconnect the battery.
2 batteries, actually.
Batteries.
That's fun, because now I gotta clear out my trunk. All right, man. I'll be here.
Nice meeting you.
If I have to use the bathroom, inside or back door or wherever, just
Depends on what you gotta do.
like the dogs,
Basically.
like the humans. Actually, I shouldn't have to take much.
You'll notice that when I cut with a file, I usually stroke it front to back, but also at an angle.
Stroke it.
Because when you look at the splines on a file, when you cut it at an angle like that, you're cutting with the full face. Don't cut like this with a file. I mean, you can, but it might not be as efficient as cutting it like this.
Here are the extra fucking wires.
Ah, look at that. Now it's gonna nest in there, which will allow me to keep it perfectly centered. And this way, it's gonna be perfectly set up when I go to tack it in. All right, I got to do some other preparing that I'm gonna do off camera because it mainly has to do with me going to the bathroom, and I'll be
And you're gonna kill the battery.
finishing this up. I'm gonna be bolting this up to the car lightly, not locking it up. I'm gonna then slip this in, make sure that the back is where I want it to be, where we want it to be, and then I'm going to set up the welder, put a couple of tacks on it,
Ben's talking. Look down, last.
play with it a little bit, and that'll be it.
Have you seen the newly added spoiler on the back of that Maxima?
I was gonna go take a picture of that because that thing's amazing.
The what?
It's the Maxima over there with the stripes. There's a little tiny 6-inch spoiler on the back.
Oh, that's like an RC car spoiler.
Yeah.
I'll go walk over to it later. All right, Ben. I'll be calling you soon.
Alright.
So this is going to get bolted up.
Nothing works.
This is going to get put into position. We're going to get it clocked just right. Hope that the tip still stays pretty straight, and tack it up. And then we'll be able to pull it back out. If everything goes good, do a nice quick bead around this, and this is done. After that, they'll be situated exactly where we want them to be, which if you look right now is nice and centered, and the gap on top is perfect.
We have bias.
And then after that, I'm going to then start preparing to cut these off and set up for the cutout. Fun stuff. Okay, so nothing has changed since the last turn this off, but now I'm at a good stage where I can clean up some stuff that I no longer need. For example, this is garbage, but it also allows me to look at it and notice what kind of penetration I got. If you could see melting on the inside of the inner tube, you know that thing is never coming off. Also, something else to note, if you didn't notice it earlier, these are welds that I did with a stainless steel wire in a MIG welder. You can see they're still sort of shiny, not overly rusty. There is a little bit of corrosion on it, but that's just because the steel was the muffler and the Y pipe were a little dirty. Also, these I believe are MagnaFlow high scavenging merges, and they're stainless, but they're not made out of the highest grade stainless, and magnet flow, they do get their welder a little bit too hot, and when you heat up stainless steel too much with the welder or with a torch, you burn out the properties of it. So you could see that the difference from their weld to my weld, theirs is already starting to oxidize a little bit more on the outside than mine. What the shop did, honestly, this doesn't look like stainless wire that they used. And the only reason why I say that is because the splatter is already starting to rust. But that could also be from the tips themselves. I kind of like these tips. They do step down, which is a little bit unusual, but they seem to be nicely made. Anyway, I'm going to clean up a little bit, sweep up some of these finite steel chips that are on the floor to prevent them from going into my head or anywhere on my body. I'm just going to sweep it into the corner for now, and then at the end of the night, depending on when that's going to be, I will then do a full sweep up and cleaning. I like cleaning up as often as I can, because when I am working in a dirty environment, or at least an environment that's a little bit too chaotic, I start to get not overwhelmed, but I just start getting angry at how dirty everything is. So for down here, I shouldn't need my adjustable, I shouldn't need my needle nose, and I shouldn't need my 15mm. Reason being for this is only used for the clamps for the intermediate pipe to these axle back pieces. So this is going to go away. I'm going to need both my 14mm and my 9/16 wrenches. I'm going to need both of those bolts. Probably don't even need this because the wrenches will provide more than enough torque. But at the end of the night, I would like to just snug everything up. So I will leave that out. This piece is not garbage. Even though this is not the same material that I'm going to be welding on in a couple minutes, I am going to use this to help set up my welder to get the speed and the amperage just right. So I'm going to hold on to this as scrap just to make sure the welder is 100% set up before I go ahead and start even preparing to tack everything in place. The reason for that is you want to make sure that everything is going to weld the way you need it to when you need it to. So this way I don't make a hash of it and have sloppy looking welds, or at least try to prevent that. So a couple of tools to put away. This entire toolbox is going to get stripped out very soon anyway and cleaned, so I'm not going to go crazy with that. Slide that out of the way, but keep it accessible. That goes back in the completely messy bag. That's fine. Cardboard. Shake it off. Slide it out of the way. Got the broom, and once again, like all these loose rocks, they don't usually bother you when you're walking, but when you're laying on top of them, oh, they can be very annoying. Now, I'm also kicking up a lot of dust, which I would have preferred not to do, but I'd also prefer to not lay underneath very sharp rocks. All right, that's done. Beautiful. Cardboard goes back down. I'm working on just one side, so I'm going to double it up a little bit, get a little more cushion. I'm going to bring everything down with me. I am a little worried about this raised piece right here, but it doesn't really affect where the gasket goes. It's still underneath where the gasket is going to sit, and if anything, it's going to do more to keep the gasket in a better position. But still, I don't like it. So before I go ahead and bolt this up, I'm probably going to take out my 4.5-inch grinder and just clean this up just ever so slightly. So I'm going to come over here. I do have a battery-powered grinder, which, you know what, I might as well use because I don't feel like plugging anything in right now. My trusty Milwaukee 4.5-inch M18 grinder. I'm going to take out any sort of disc will do, but when doing finite work, I usually gravitate towards a cutoff disc. I know it's a bit of a no-no to put any sort of side-to-side pressure on a cutoff disc, but I'm going to keep it on the very tip. That's going to allow for a very finite amount of work, for a very finite procedure. This battery is fully charged. Beautiful. This doesn't spin anywhere near as fast as a corded grinder, but it'll certainly do the trick. I'm trying not to mind that one. So I want to take this down without hitting this face, because this face is very important to get a good seal with the gasket. And I'm just below the top. Ah, you fucker. That's what happens when you're not paying enough attention. Almost there. Close, but no cigar. That's going to be good enough for me, because now that gasket should go in there and clear for most of it. I don't really care about any of this stuff in here. Probably a bad thing, I know, but it'll do for right now. Gasket on, slides over pretty good. It's acceptable for me. All right, I'm going below. Be sure to bring everything that you need with you down beneath the car. Alright, so one bolt's going to go in and just get hand tight. Just keep it in some sort of place. Or not. This hardware just looks like it's galvanized, which is better than non-galvanized hardware, but I like running stainless hardware. And where the threads lock up, I like running a little bit of anti-seize, just so that it doesn't rust into position forever and ever. But I like doing the stainless hardware because it doesn't rust. But galvanizing is usually fine. It's just different strokes for different folks. Okay, so do have a little bit of movement with this flex piece of flex pipe, which is good. Should allow me to get a perfect setup. This seems to be pretty good. It might just have to come up a little bit, and if it does have to come up, I can always just loosen that clamp and clock it a little bit more. Hopefully we won't have to get to that. One thing I did forget to take down is that marker, but it should be good. So again, going to have to just push this through. If you have a hard time getting these in or out, you can put a little bit of penetrating spray or even a little bit of windshield washer fluid on there, and it should pull right through. All right, so here's the problem with this. I need to get something in the back to just have it rest up, to take off the slack, which will then allow me to line them up from the outside of the car so that the mufflers are even to one another. And then I have to get outside and make sure that it's not only far enough back, but that this is also clocked the perfect way. So my brother had to go run an errand, so he took my car. Hopefully everything will come back in one piece. And it would make this a lot easier, but I'm under a time restraint just because I'm exhausted and we're losing daylight. So I'm gonna have to now climb to the front of my car, get a jack stand, get this into position, hope that it's gonna stay, and then we're gonna set up the welder and make sure everything's good on that. All right. Okay, everything's fine. Everything's fine. So where are your jack stands? Oh, I don't know. Pretty accessible, I think. I thought I had another pair out, but I just can't seem to find them. I'm not going to use a jack because a jack is just too big and cumbersome. I want something as narrow and as discreet as possible. Don't try this at home. This is, oh, there are my other jack stands. I'm actually going to run these because they're a little bit narrower and they should provide enough lift. If not, I have some old pieces of wood I can put up on top of them. Car's garbage, the engine's not. That battery's full of charge. I don't need that right now though. Whoa. Okay. That was easy. Hate these. Hate these. They were given to me by a friend, so I'm not going to say no to free tools. All right. This should just be full enough to work. Look at that. That might almost be enough. Yep. Oh, this is gonna be a fun ride. If anything, I could just position it like that and hope nothing moves. Don't breathe too hard. All right. So, as far as where it comes out, I'm gonna do the finger test. It's just behind the Borla, whereas over here, it's really close. You get on top of them, stare down. Oh, it's well within a ½ inch. Can I push them just a little bit farther back? There we go. I might even think that's a little bit too far in now. That looks perfect. As far as how the tip themselves are clocked, they look pretty good, but I care more about this cutout. And you can see, if you can, but the right side of the merge is lower than the left. Come up here to this side, they're basically dead even. They're perfectly level. So that is what's going to really make or break this, is having it sit like that. But now, you know, it's off to one side, so this hanger is going to have to get bent. And to do that, we're gonna have a little hope and prayer under here. Move the jack stand out of the way. I'm just gonna take this and force it up a little bit. Don't force it up too much, because if you bend it too far one way, and you have to bend it back the other way, you're gonna start weakening the shaft. And what's gonna happen? It's gonna break on you. So be very, very, very careful. All right. Okay, let's get back out. Centering looks really good. Height, almost perfect. And it's It's looking a little bit more level. Oh, the one time I catch a mosquito, I let him go. If it goes, actually, you know what? That's really, it's better than what it was. It is better. It's not perfect, but it's definitely much better. So I'm gonna go a little bit more. Get this thing pressed in here one more time. Get nice and high. I might have to raise that up about another ½ inch or so. Actually, that gap is pretty good. But it's not perfectly centered now. If I have it like that. Alright, so I have to let it just hang a little more free, and I think it's going to be good. I might have to have a gap on the back side. No big deal. I didn't want a gap, but I could fill it in. Oh baby. Oh baby, that's it. That's what I was looking for. That is much more even side to side. Let's get it from top view. The A is just hiding. The B is just hiding. It is so close, it is near perfect. This is good enough for me to tack it. Because once I tack it, I could remove the jack stand and I can start to finite tweak it, whichever direction I want, either from the back at the tack or at the front on the hanger, until it's perfect. And then once I get it perfect, do a couple more tacks. I play with it a little bit just to make sure it's not going to move around on me too much, and we're going to be good. One thing I did notice though is now that tip is completely cocked. Completely cockeyed. First world problems, I guess. Alright. Let me start setting up the welder. I want to focus on something else for a little bit, because I have to do that anyway. Alright, so this is a old Miller welder. I don't know exactly when it was made. I think it was sometime in the mid-90s, but it is a good welder. This belongs to a friend of mine who used to have a detail shop that was building a Datsun 510, and I did some welding on his car, and he needed a welder, so I helped him buy this used off Craigslist for I think $300, and it worked out great. It needed a little bit of work, but he got it for a really cheap price. This is, I believe, a Miller 130. Yeah, 130, American made. This is a very heavy unit. It's a little beat up around the edges. Some of the trim is messed up, but other than that, it is a very solid performing unit, and you could weld with this thing all day long and it wouldn't even break a sweat. So a couple things we have to do. First, we have to change out the wire. Once we change out the wire, we can then set up the argon tank, make sure everything else goes good with it, and then I can adjust my amperage and wire speed accordingly. Okay, so battery died. It happens. I'm now hooked up to some Frankenstein creation. I look like Weapon X, but that's besides the point. No, Wolverine was what? He was not Weapon X. Wolverine was a bitch. Yeah, when he had that head unit on. Anyway, we're gonna set up this welder really quick. So, all right, this is going to be interesting. Couple of steps to do. First is to take out the mild steel spool of wire to replace it for a stainless steel spool of wire. as you'll see right here. So the difference, well, one's stainless steel and one is mild steel or regular steel. This is not copper, it's just a coating that's on it to prevent it from oxidizing. So we're going to first take out the old spool before we even start prepping that. Now what you do, if you have to remove a spool, I already snipped the tip coming out of the torch itself. Disengage the lock. I'm going to take my gloves off for this because I have to pinch the wire like so, and you just slowly start to pull this back. Now the reason why I'm pinching the wire with my right hand is so that once the wire comes through, I can stop it, as opposed to it coiling back and unspringing and uncoiling itself from the spool. I'm not going to get in depth with how to properly set up a welder for every occasion. I will probably make a video of that in the coming months, or maybe even coming weeks. But for right now, I'm already in the process of this, so I might as well do it. Okay, so as you can see, the tip of the wire has come through the power cord. So I'm going to keep pinching it, and I'm going to pull this off. And on these spools, you'll see little holes on both sides, and sometimes you'll even see multiple holes, or on a spool such as the one on the stainless, you only have these two holes and nothing else. But you take it, you take the tip of the wire, you push it through the hole, and you just kink it back like so. And you pinch it really good, and that's usually enough to keep it in position. If you don't do this, it's just going to unwind, and you're going to have a hell of a time trying to get that back into position. Put that off to the corner. Take the stainless steel wire. Now, whenever you loop it through to lock it in position, just cut it off. You want your wire to be nice and straight as possible to go through your power cord. So this, garbage. Now for this, I'm going to leave it like so until I get it into the machine. I'm going to do this so that I don't have to worry about trying to hold it and position it all at the same time. I'm going to leave this off. I'm going to leave the locking pin off of it just in case I have to pull it out to swing it in to get it through the pins a little bit easier. So now again, I'm going to hold it now with my left hand just so I can cut this. Cut it nice and straight, or at least as straight as you can. Make sure there's no sharp edges on it or burrs. If there is a burr, or if it's not cut perfectly square, it might lock up inside the power cable, or it might just make your life a little more difficult. Now the issue with this is this red nozzle, on this particular welder at least, prevents it. The liner inside the power cable is recessed in there, so you have to sort of guesstimate and help it out to get it in the hole. No references here, please. I think I just had it and just slipped out. Oh, come on. Don't make me spit on you. Sometimes it goes right in, sometimes it doesn't. So one thing I don't like about this welder. There we go. So once it's in, secure it by dropping the tensioner wheel on top and then the tensioner lock on top. Do not forget to lock your spool. Most welders have different styles of locking. This one's just a very simple pin. I think it might be easier to pull it out like this, and it is. This way, now you don't have to worry about this thing falling off. Okay, so now that it's in, I do not have the gas regulator hooked up to it yet, and I'm going to leave it off until I get the wire pulled through the tip. So now close this. Actually, you know what? I'm not. I'm going to leave it open, and I'll explain to you why in a sec. I can't really walk too far. Grab the power cable. Now, something to note about every MIG power cable is that they have liners. And the liner is like a very tightly wound spring. And there's no spacing in between, and it runs the entire length. That's what the steel core travels through to get to your tip. Now, this is just your nozzle. Your nozzle just keeps the gas, in this case, flowing towards the tip. You see, this isn't going to come off the way I want it to, but it's going to be hard to see, but it is in there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to speed up the wire speed, and I'm going to allow the wire to feed all the way through before I put the nozzle on. Now, going back to it, the liner doesn't like to be kinked. So if you make this into a really tight radius and squeeze, kind of like what we did on the spool of wire, you could damage it and prevent the wire from being able to feed through. So whenever you're using a MIG welder, always keep your leads nice and flowing. Don't ever keep them tight, don't ever pull on them, because you could pull the wires out of this and destroy it. So now this is through. I'm going to see if the nozzle will fit the wire. It does. Now the old wire that we took out was 0.23. This is 0.30, also known as 30 thousandths and 23 thousandths thickness on the wire itself. This tip is 0.23, but it's been used so much that an 0.30 wire fits through it. And I like my wires to be a little bit tighter in the nozzle than loose. The reason why I like that is I don't want the wire to dance around on me as I weld. One side effect of that is if you get the nozzle really hot from doing a lot of welding all day long, it could actually expand, causing tension to be put on the wire, and you to now have what's known as feed problems, because there's a little bit more resistance on this and the wire feeder can't push it through as easily. So keep that in mind. All right, I'm going to lower this back down to, I believe it was around 40, but I'm going to run this down at around 30. And I'm going to shut this off. This is all the way pulled through. It's perfect. I'm now going to cut the excess off at the tip. Do not leave this on the floor. Not only might this go through your tire, but it might also go through your foot. You could ask me how I know that one. I've had that happen multiple times. I even had one of these in my boot one time at work, and I went to my TIG welder that was having grounding issues, and when I went to go start an arc against the pedal, I got electrocuted because this little fucker decided to go through my boot and just enough to penetrate into my sock and ground out against the foot pedal. It was not a good time. Clean up your mess. Yes, I made that in there. Okay, now we're going to set up the argon. My adjustable wrench is not over there. Where the hell did I put it? This is what happens when you don't keep clean and organized. You start forgetting where the hell you put shit. Oh, it was right there. I put my glove on it. So I'm going to show this. I'm going to do this as quickly as I can because we are losing light and I don't want to be working in the dark, even though I do have drop lights. But I don't know how the video is going to come out, so I don't want to deal with that. These are brass. These are regular right-hand threads. You should be fine with that. Make sure that the tip of this is nice and clean and free of debris and not marred up in any way from you dragging it along asphalt floors. Make sure the threads are nice and clean, because if you damage these threads, you're going to have a bad time. This should go in there nice and easy. Beautiful. And lock up by hand. When you come back here with the adjustable, it should only require just a little bit of tension. And that's it. Any more than that, you could strip the threads. Now we're going to we're going to turn on the tank. We're running a little low. We're just about 400 to 425 PSI, but that's going to be more than enough to do what we need to do. As far as what we're regulating it down to, we're regulating it about 21 PSI. That should be more than enough for what we're going to be using it for. The reason why I left the door open when we're feeding the wire through was so that if it jammed up, I can see it. If I was trying to feed the wire and this stopped, the wire jammed in the front. The reason why I took the nozzle off the front to allow the wire through was because sometimes the wire will hit the back of the nozzle and jam. If it jams, you could damage the wire through the mechanism, and you're going to have, again, a bad time. So I'm now going to turn the welder towards where I'm going to be working. Again, being sure not to have this get too tight. I'm going to just drape this on the floor for now, like so. Try not to drop it. You damage the electrical wires inside, and again, you're going to have to replace it. So, what I was saying before is, I'm going to practice setting up the welder on this. You know what? I should do it over here away from the car and the grass, so this way, if something decides to catch on fire, it won't be by the car. Pull this, we'll leave this over here. Slowly drag this across the floor. And now, I don't know how I'm going to do this with a welding helmet on my head, but I'm going to have to figure it out. We're going to turn on the welder. We have, on this particular welder, 4 settings as far as power level or amperage. 1 is very low, 2 is more, 3 is slightly more than that, and 4 is full. Because I'm running an 030 wire, but because I am welding on pretty thin material, I think we're going to start out at 2 with a slightly slower wire speed. Just get us in the ballpark. And then from there I can adjust accordingly. The argon, the 7525 is on. Welder's on, everything's set up. I just need my helmet and my gloves. So, okay, my leather gloves are back there. My welding helmet of choice is a Miller Performance Series welding helmet. This one I bought off eBay a couple of months ago. I had a Miller Elite, but the Elite for me was just a little bit too big and too heavy. Yes, it had a bigger front screen that you could see more through of, but it's just too heavy, and it kept on eating. They always eat batteries. I had 2 Miller Elites, didn't care for either of them. I sold them all, and I bought a second one of these. This is actually my second one, my second Performance. I do have the exact same helmet, but it's about 9 years old. My mother bought that for me when I first started my job welding, and it's been as good to me as it is since the first day I got it. Truly great helmets. You pay a little bit more for them. This is an older style, the non-digital style. I prefer this as opposed to the digital style because, again, it just adds a little more complexity to it, and it'll drip. It is right now. It makes it much more complex, a little bit heavier, a little bit bulkier, and more money. It makes it more expensive. May I please have my gloves, my leather gloves?
I can possibly detether you if need be.
No, I should be all right for right now.
Yeah, I would just give you my battery jumper with a USB charging thing on it.
So, I don't know what the hell is going to happen with this. You're probably going to see most of my face through the reflection of my helmet. But, you know, as they say in France,
you're not gonna see shit.
Oh shit, whatever. Again, try to keep this cord as swooping as possible. That sounds pretty damn good. An old welder that I knew, an old timer, he said the perfect way to get a MIG welder or even a stick welder running, it should sound like bacon on a griddle. It should have that perfect sizzle, no splattering, no popping, no stopping, no intermediate. Well, it should just sound like bacon on a hot griddle. And if you do a long enough pass, you'll hear it. It almost sounds like it. This we're getting plenty of penetration from. I didn't have any popping from the nozzle. I didn't have any delay between the wire hitting the material and stopping and going, which would usually mean either too low of an amperage or too slow of a wire speed. If it was pushing away, it's either, again, too low of an amperage or too high of a wire speed. This is pretty much perfect. I'm not going to be running a solid bead all the way around. I'm going to be tacking this in a bunch of sections and then going back and laying a bunch of tacks on it. This will allow me a couple of things. First, it'll allow me to get really good penetration into the piece, and by jumping around with the tacks, it'll allow me to keep the material cool enough so that I don't burn out the properties of the stainless. Very important. Another thing to keep in mind with doing it like that is you're going to be getting much more penetration, and you're going to make sure that every little gap that you might have is going to get filled. So we're going to look on the inside. I don't know if you can tell, but there is bubbling on the inside from me getting penetration into this piece, which is perfect. I like how it sounds, I like how it looks, I like how it felt. I'm gonna leave it. So I'm done with this piece of scrap. I'm gonna get it out of the way. I'm gonna carry my leads and this power cable and my helmet back to the underside of the car. Again, while trying to maintain the integrity of this power cord. And now I'm gonna have to take this camera off so I can get under there and get comfortable with my helmet on so I don't burn my face too badly. But what my brother has is another welding helmet with a fixed 10 power lens on it. This is a non-electrical, just shitty welding helmet. But you know what? These work really good. If you're doing a lot of continuous welding, doing a lot of long passes with a MIG or a stick, I really like these because they're not only lighter, they're also very cheap, but you're also not going to blind yourself by accident because the batteries either dropped dead or the sensor was dirty. So knock them if you want. These are great helmets. Unfortunately, when you're in a very tight area and you can't flip the helmet up to get a good view of where you're welding, it becomes a bit of a, it becomes more of a detriment to what you're trying to do than a positive. So they have their time and place. This is not one of them. This is good for the camera because we can get it set up on point and just let it roll, and hopefully you might see something. If not, you know, we'll do it next time. So I'm going to get into position real quick.
Ah, you fucking piece of shit. All right, shut that off.
No, this is perfect.
No.
Explain what just happened.
I fucked up. I fucked up by touching it too much.
There you go.
Are we good in the back?
Oh.
We have to be perfect. You don't move. Let me get it.
I got it. Hold on. Fuck these goddamn GoPros. Fuck, kneeling hurts. I mean, yeah, two fingers perfect there.
Yeah, but the tube is complete. Yeah.
Let me just check this side. This side's done, right?
Yeah, that's what's fully
2 inches of space, so that's 2 inches. It's a little bit more, but it's good.
All right. Back at it.
You never edit. This is the important stuff.
No, back at it.
I know.
All right, I'm going.
I'm gonna lay on my new phone.
Let me get the wrenches. Oh, I got them.
I don't think I have access to those wrenches.
So now I should be able to take that twist out by just locking this up. How do we look at the back?
1 sec. That's why you wear long pants and good. That's centered to me. It's a little further over here, but that's fine. I'd rather be centered there than. Actually, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect.
All right, so now I'm gonna lock this up, do a couple more tacks on it, make sure it stays where I want it to, and then I'm gonna pull this out, do a full bead around it, and we'll be good to go. We could put this back together tonight. And then we could really quarterback what we're gonna do with the cutouts, where we're gonna put them, and how we're gonna get them mounted. Because if we can avoid welding on them, to avoid the warranty,
Yeah.
I would like to.
So you want to hold
Which
off.
means that we'd have to either pop holes in these plates and weld them up, or buy another set of these. The actual,
So you don't want not putting cutouts on this weekend.
maybe not.
I hate you. I hate him, camera. Camera, he's a shithead.
Hey, look, you had to come up anyway to film the stuff with M and J.
No, I didn't. I came up for this. Emma J could wait. Come get my goddamn exhaust.
Hey, look, at least it's not gonna be melting your fucking bumper anymore.
That's what cool kids have nowadays. All their bumpers are melted.
How's it look though? It's nice and
Yeah,
centered.
that's good. That's good.
Even just from 2 tacks, it's already not gonna move anywhere. All right. So I'm gonna do a couple more tacks on the opposite side and the bottom, and then we can pull it out and then go from there.
Hold on, you're killing the camera.
Alright, I think that's gonna be good enough to take off.
Okay. Take it off.
Alright, I'm just gonna do a couple tacks for you real quick. I don't know if this is gonna work, but we're about to find out.
I'm sort of aiming. If you go to do this a lot, what I would recommend highly, here, let me the camera is going to be a whole lot less sensitive than the human eye. Get like a really dark set of sunglasses and just try that.
Try not to get it too hot in one spot, because like I said earlier, if you get the stainless too hot, you'll burn out the properties of the stainless, and you might as well have made this out of mild steel. For a lot less money and a lot easier time to work with it. All right, I'm gonna finish it.
That's pretty good.
All right, we're done. We're done for the night. It's nice and centered. It's a good gap.
Always look up more than you think when you're looking straight ahead, because that's
this side's off a little bit, but that's only because I bent the bracket, and the exhaust is gonna has to settle still. There's a lot of movement going on here, which I don't care for, but we'll be able to tweak most of that out later on after everything is 100%. All right.
Up more when you're looking. Teach you how to do things.
So here we go. This is in here just as a safety precaution until I get the second mountain. Back here, everything looks really good. Everything's tight. Everything's welded up. I know it's gonna be hard for you guys to see. You wanna get the light?
Oh, Jesus Christ! I just looked at it.
Why would you look at bright ass light? So
I need to know where it
here are my welds. Something real quick. It's hard to see in the dark and weld at the same time. No excuses though, but for what it is going to be more than sufficient. So everything is fully locked up. So all we have to do now is figure out how we're going to do the cutout. So now I need Z to come down here with me so we can hold some stuff, get some things marked out, and see exactly how much room I have to work with.
You want the dugs first?
I want everything.
You want the actual
yeah, just bring me everything. And the
What do you mean everything?
Everything. Also give me the 30-degree bends or whatever the hell those were.
Yes.
The pipes that I told you to buy and didn't think we were going to need them.
To buy, then I bought, and then you said return these, and I didn't because I'm lazy and smart.
Well, I think they might work out perfect.
Yes, they will.
For what I have to come off of here.
These are from pipes and PA.
I'll show you guys momentarily. I don't know why I keep on calling you guys
Those
If
are
you're
so
female,
nice.
I'm very,
Jesus
very
Christ.
sorry. So I like pipe stuff. Pipe stuff is nice. Unfortunately, the polishing can sometimes cause you to have welding issues.
Don't say that about my baby.
So what you do is you cut it off and you either wire wheel it or hit it with some Scotch-Brite or some acetone. But what we're gonna do is, let me get it cut out.
Hold on, I'm trying to decide which side was which. I think this side would do good.
For the driver's side?
Yeah, because I'm trying to, do you want the flange towards the back or the flange towards the front?
Well, that's what I have to figure. That's what we have to figure out right now. So I want the motors away from the pipe as much as possible.
So the motors are.
Even though it doesn't really matter which side it goes on. Okay, so what make are these?
These are Doug's.
Doug's makes some really nice stuff. You can tell from the TIG welding inside here. Probably not done by a machine, probably done by someone sitting on their ass all day long just
They
welding.
better be for the price.
And they're very nicely made. I've only heard good things about them. Links are in the description if you want to get them. A little bit pricey, but again, you get what you pay for. All stainless steel, stainless steel construction,
You gotta sell them.
and they look really nice.
Tell them it makes their dick bigger.
It'll make your dick huge. Fucking bulbous penis. Your areolas, for all you ladies, would just blossom. Beautiful.
Actually,
All right.
no
So,
big areolas.
what we got going on is we have to figure out where and how we're going to mount this. Now, the good thing about this is the original mufflers on this car were fucking huge. With those out of the way, we have plenty of room for a nice size muffler and a cutout. Now, this is a very large cutout. You can get a QTP cutout which just has a motor coming off perpendicular to a butterfly valve, but those leak and they fall off. I've had several of those in the past and they've always seemed to fail. And the DHM or the DMH cutouts that I had after that also failed because the motors fell off mid-drive. So hopefully that won't happen with these, and that's why we want to maintain the warranty. So we're not going to do any welding on these. So that means we're going to have to get a 3-bolt flange like this. This is the cover for it. What we might end up doing here is cutting this out to bolt it up to this and welding onto a section of pipe. If not, I have a CNC plasma cutter at my job. I might just have to make a couple of them real quick. And if not, then I don't know what we're going to do, to be honest, but we'll figure it out. Welding on cutout voids warranty. So I guess we'll see what happens. First thing I want to do is see if this will slide in there. Absolutely not. Thank you, Dougs. You make beautiful stuff, but you make it like a fucking idiot. All right, great. So let me put that down for a second. I want to keep the motor away from the heat as much as possible. So I want to keep the motor inboard towards the car. I don't want to
put that cutout as close to the back flange as possible, right?
I'm going to try.
Yeah, okay.
But it's going to be a very, very tricky angle getting this just right. The good thing is, if we put this cutout perfectly vertical and as close, like, if we get it just touching the muffler, we'll have no clearance issues no matter where it goes.
Correct.
Which is great.
Point out that giant plastic bin under the car holds a full-size spare.
This is a full-size spare in here, children.
So I can remove that, and I can have so much room down there I could smuggle just Canadians.
Yeah, Canadians that don't want to live in Happy Gooseneck Bay anymore. Smuggle them right down to Mexico. Anyway, here we go. That's going to be a clearance issue because of how big the body is, how tight these flanges are, and how close this gap is. So I'm gonna have to cut this at an angle, get a pipe, cut it at an angle, and then for here, I'm gonna take this and get it to go like that. Get it at a pretty severe angle, hopefully, and make the transition from this pipe to this pipe as smooth as possible. Z, do we have any? We only have full U's, don't we?
Here's the full U right here.
Shit. All right, let me get it.
Good luck manipulating this shit on front of your face.
So this is a tight bend U, 3-inch. I think this is a 6-inch radius. Might be a 6 or an 8. I'm not too sure. Another option is to cut this at an angle like so.
Hey, boy. We have these.
We also have these, yes.
Cut those off, and then you don't have to make shit. I'm not returning
Could.
it. Who gives a fuck?
I could cut. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry that it's so awkward under here, but this is the best way to do it with the light.
The internet loves awkward.
I can cut these off, grind down the welds, pop out the tube, boom. Got one flange. However,
Here you go.
I would still need I'd still need another 2.
Actually, if you kept some of the pipe, no, it's not enough.
No, it's not enough. I'm gonna have to figure this out. I'll figure this out at work. I'll figure it out tomorrow, and then I'll figure it out at work on Monday. But for right now, I'm gonna have to see which one's gonna be best. I've made cutouts like this before, using an elbow like this, cut at an angle like this, radius on both sides to encapsulate the entire tube. So this way, it slides right over it. I'd mark it out, cut it with a plasma cutter, clean it up, and weld it in place. And that way you have a really smooth transition.
The other cutouts here, by the way, in case you want to try the other direction.
Alright. I'm probably going to end up using the U. Just because it's going to be a much smoother and quicker transition, as opposed to this very acute angle. I don't remember what this is. It might be like a 15 degree. if I do it like that, it might just not be enough. It might be too hard of an edge for the exhaust to scavenge through it. So I'm gonna have to decide this when I'm at the bench on Monday. What I'm gonna do is after hours on Monday after work, I'm going to take these off, bring these into my shop, and do all the fab work there. I have access to a lot better tools and a much larger workspace than what I'm currently working on, which is the floor. So for right now, I see no issues with me being able to take these off and installing these in a fashion where I have to worry about any sort of clearance issues. Even if I keep it about an inch away here or here, I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna try to keep it towards the middle so I have a little bit more room to work here, because I think this angle is gonna be much harder to keep perfect than this angle. Granted, this angle is more important than this one. I still want to make sure that this exits nice and smooth. So it's going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of thought tonight. I'll probably put the cutout here because I think we have the most amount of room here. And I'm going to angle this probably like around there. So this way I have the most amount of room both up and out. Going to the other side. Let me see how this one's going to work. This side looks like I have a little bit more room to work, and it does. I think there is more room on this side. Now this is not.
How it's mirrored?
Yeah, let me get.
It's right there.
Well, it's not really going to matter, to be completely honest.
Well, the egg shape is greater on one side than the other. So it'll probably just be an angular thing.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot more space on this side. Oh, but you know what? It is also pulled out a little bit, but nowhere near enough to really cause an issue. Let me get the marker, please.
I'll do the marker away.
That's fine.
Marker is in your hands and open.
Thank you.
Marker.
So all I'm doing is I'm going to mark where I want the cutout to go. I want to put it here on both sides because I have a little bit more clearance between this rib than I do on the back. And I should have just enough room to work in the front and more than enough in the back. These are not straight lines. So that's where I want to cut out on this side. Now these mufflers are gonna get very hot for the next couple of days until we get the opportunity to do this job, but it should still show up. And then this one's gonna go right around here. And I'm going to take pictures of this before we're done tonight. So this way, if they do burn off completely, I will be able to visualize where they go roughly.
I'm not going on any long trips, so it shouldn't get that hot.
No, it should be good. A couple things I don't like about this exhaust is how offset it looks in the middle around the carrier. It clears the carrier just fine, but this hanger could have come out another ½ inch or so to line up perfect. And if I do that, it twists everything a little bit too much. And keep in mind, I put both rear mufflers on, both axle back sections on, with the intermediate pipe at rest, so there's no tension on this at all. Just one little pet peeve that I have with this setup. My brother's pet peeve is he paid for 3-inch and got 2.5. So
pretty goddamn sure I paid for 3-inch.
He's gonna have to rectify that tonight to confirm that he did order a 3-inch. But
yes,
if not, you know, hey, look, mistakes are made. No one died. Learn from it. But if they did send him the wrong size tubing, shame on them, and hopefully he'll get some sort of refund. All right, so that concludes this shit show. Monday is going to be a good day. I'll try to take video of what goes on, and we'll go from there. All right. Hope you enjoyed.
Bye, sock puppet.